Hi everybody, hope you're all having a great time. What a beautiful gathering. I just want to say thanks to Eli actually for inviting me and for putting on this event. It's so beautiful to have like-minded people together. And I wanted to share a path of both healing, sovereignty, enlightenment, spirituality through nature. So I am a plant spirit healer. And so I work with the conscious intelligence of plants to do my own inner work, but also to work with my clients. So my day job is that I look after people's energy fields. So I do it remotely, so my clients are all around the world, and I've been doing it for a number of years. And so I work with my spirit team, my plant spirit team, to forensically cleanse, transform, remove, repattern, and bring integrity back to people's energy fields. Because we're used to looking after our body, we're used to getting a shower every day, but how often do we cleanse our energy fields and what's attached into it? And we collect traumas and damage to our energy fields from many different things, accidents, allopathic medicines can displace the energy fields, and many different reasons. Drinking alcohol can cause kind of issues in your energy field. Lots of different reasons why we can create damage and have a distorted energy field, and it makes us sick. You know, we all, I'm sure I don't need to tell you that illnesses start, everything starts in the non-physical, and through the process of involution comes down to manifest in our body if we don't deal with it. So the path of plant spirit healing is working on that level, working with the spirit of the plants and the trees to help us at that non-physical emotional level. So it becomes preventative, but it also becomes a path of awakening as well, which you'll understand as I move through this talk. So what I wanted to just clarify first is that I'm trained in the Celtic tradition of our islands, and so my understanding of soul and spirit is particular. So I'll just kind of like outline what I mean, the difference between soul and spirit, so that because we use it in the modern context in quite an interchangeable way, but in Celtic cosmology it has and theology, it has a particular meaning. So when I talk about the soul forces, so we all have this body, yeah? So we've got a physical body made of the earth element. We breathe the air, we've got blood made of the fire and water elements. And so we've got these soul forces from the earth, the elemental forces from the earth, and so we know that we've been gifted this earthly body for this particular incarnation, this particular life. And so through the soul forces, that creates your personality for this life. Of course, it's influenced by, other lives, it's influenced by social conditioning, family, etc. But the personality arrives through that, for this particular lifetime, through those soul forces. And then when we die, we know those soul forces go back to the earth. So a part of us does go back to nature, which I'm looking forward to. And I think we miss, actually. I think part of us kind of like we want to get back to nature because that's part of us, that's where it's come from. And then the eternal spirit, this is the part of us that goes from lifetime to lifetime. Okay, this is the aspect of us that accumulates the wisdom. So in Buddhism, it's the substrate consciousness, and it doesn't have any form. But in anthroposophy, in Rudolf Steiner's teachings, you can actually give this aspect of yourself form. So we understand we have different layers of our energy field, and we have the etheric body that's quite close to us. We have the emotional body, that's the astral space, which I'm going to come on to later, because that's the space I primarily work in. And then we've got the mental body. And this mental body isn't particularly formed yet. So in our spiritual development, according to Steiner, we're moving into a place of giving form to this mental layer that just looks like a sheath in our energy field right now. Whereas in the astral space, if you all took a dose of magic mushrooms and with the intention to look at each other's astral body, you'd see each other's astral body. It just looks very similar to how people look now, but it can look very childlike if people are very kind of like got this exuberance of their inner child. It can manifest in deformed ways as well if we don't feel good about ourselves. So we've already, in the evolution of our consciousness and of mankind, we've already given form to our astral bodies. But that's where all our karmas is. That's where the healing needs to take place. However, overarching that, with a view to kind of our ascension, and here people use that word, or our kind of consciousness awakening, the Great Awakening, in Steiner terminology, that's just giving form to our mental body. So that means making our highest self, our superconsciousness, in Greek theology, it's the daemon, you know, it's that our highest aspect. That is our unconditional love. And so we know that we're on this path of trying to make that, to embody that, trying to make that part of our everyday consciousness, even when we're in challenging times, you know, when something really challenging comes into our life, then, you know, how do we handle it? So if we can, you know, our challenge, and we're all still working at this, I'm sure, is to handle it from that unconditional love perspective. Not that we're a pushover at all, and that we just have to let everything just be, you know, not at all. You know, we have to have a very strong determination to overcome these kind of opposing forces that we all have to deal with. So we have to have wrathfulness as well. So just as we've got this soul and this spirit, so do the plants and trees. They're actually no different. They are products of the earth, just like us. So you can go into your garden and you can speak to your beautiful oak tree or your crabapple tree, you know, and of course it's got a personality. You know, each tree, you can tell, if you're used to kind of being with trees, you can tell that each tree has a different quality, has a different kind of personality, but all with the same kind of, you know, within the same kind of ideas. So with oak, it's very grandfather-like for me, you know, and it's really grounding. So if I need some kind of, you know, some reassurance, I go and sit under an oak tree or some grounding. But the eternal aspect of the oak is the overarching Davic spirit of the oak species. So that has many names as well, the guardian spirit or the Apu spirit in certain cultures. But this overarching spirit, this eternal aspect of plants, that's the part of the plants that I work with. That's the aspect that I work with. And so we're aware that all different plants and trees carry different frequencies. So you're aware from the batch flower remedies in Boots that certain trees can help you with certain emotional issues. And certain plants, can help you with, and flowers can help you with certain emotional issues, so they bring balance. But what I find with those particular remedies in Boots is that they're not made with the conscious intelligence of the plants, so they're quite flat and two-dimensional, and they're made to just cancel out, you know, oh, I'm angry, I'll take some holly because I don't want to feel angry, without actually looking at why I'm angry. And so when you work with plant spirits, when you work with, say, remedies that are made in co-creation with the spirit of the plant, you get a much more dynamic remedy, you get a much more visceral medicine, and it actually helps you to see what you're dealing with, to actually look underneath that anger to find out what's going on with you. So working with the plant spirits in this way, they help to reflect our consciousness back at us. So we've all heard that, you know, and perhaps you've taken psychedelics, entheogens, psychoactive plants, and you know that's what they do. You know, they really reflect ourselves back at us, you know, in quite a brutal way sometimes. But so do our common native plants and trees, and these are the plants and the spirits that I work with, is our common native plants and trees. They do exactly the same thing, but not necessarily in such a brutal way. We are working in more kind of subtle realms, of course, and so you have to kind of like work with them over a longer period of time. But the effects are just as transformative, just as psychedelic sometimes, and just as consciousness expanding, actually. Because once you've met or had an experience of a plant spirit helping you, you know, it's like you've been seen on a whole new level, you know, and so to be seen on that level and for nature to be actually communicating with you to help you, wow, that just changes all your, you know, that just blasts your paradigm. And that's what happened to me. So my first exploration with plant spirits was actually with an entheogen. It was with a psychedelic plant. It was with iboga, which is from Africa. And I didn't know what it was. I was running an event in London at the time called Gateways of the Mind, and it was about lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, all the things that I was really interested in and practicing for my Buddhist studies. And somebody at that event came and said, "Have you heard of plant medicine?" I hadn't, and he invited me to a ceremony, and I just sat and had a conversation with the spirit of a plant for like hours, asking it questions, and it was answering. I was like, wow, this is like amazing. And it was teaching me in Buddhist concepts. So I was asking it about all the stuff that I was studying for my master's, and it was allowing me to have a direct experience of that. So I was like, wow, okay, forget Buddhism. So then I was like, right, now I need to know what my plants, and I'm grateful to that plant, amazing, amazing plant, but I want to know what my plants and trees of my lands are going to say to me. So then I started organizing the event Plant Consciousness, where I could bring all these plant spirit healers and shamans together, and then I could choose my teacher. And so my lineage there's a couple of different lineages of plant spirit healing. There's the Elliot Cowan lineage, who you may have heard of, which is amazing, but he's more in the kind of 5 elements way of working with plant spirits. And my lineage is through Pam Montgomery. She lives in the States, but a lot of her work is infused from the Native Americans, which blends beautifully, really beautifully with our Celtic tradition. So that's my kind of path through. So how to get to know the plant spirits? So the best way to get to know plants is to spend time with them. There isn't actually any shortcut, you know. Grow them, speak to them, communicate with them, and there are many methodologies of doing that you can Google on YouTube, I'm sure. And I use a process called a plant diet, which is very kind of broad-ranging in how you actually perform one. And I wanted to share with you how to perform a plant diet so that you can do it for yourself, because it's actually very easy. It can fit into our modern lives quite well. And this tradition, even though we don't really have a written lineage of it in this country, I'm sure we have, you know, it's quite a simple process, and I'm sure that, you know, the witches, the druids, used this. Certainly Taliesin, if you've read The Battle of the Trees, you know, in our kind of our mythological heritage, you know, wow, he couldn't have called in the spirits of all those trees into battle had he not at least dieted with these trees and spent time with them and consumed them and allowed them to populate his microbiome, you know, so that they were living inside him. And so this is what we do with plant diets. Obviously you want edible plants, ones that you can actually, so a little bit of herbalism comes in here. which you could obviously you can buy kind of books with kind of like, you know, safe plants in, etc. But there are many plants that you can just consume loads of, and lots of trees you can consume lots of without any contraindications. So so that's what I did. I started doing plant diets, and I've been doing them for 12 years constantly. And what it is basically you set aside a period of time that you dedicate to that plant spirit. So in plant spirit healing, what this process does is it teaches us sacredness. It allows us to honor in a way that we've kind of forgotten. So this is just all a remembrance anyway. We've done it before in past lives, I'm sure, but and our ancestors certainly did. But it's a way of honoring and bringing sacredness back into our lives as well, which, you know, we've kind of lost to some degree. And so you set aside a period of time, and this could be any period of time. You know, when I run a plant diet for people at my place, we fast. We just do 3 days. We fast for 3 days, and we only consume that plant. We do lots of kind of like shamanic stuff and creative stuff and things to kind of embody the plant and get to know the spirit of it. Or you could do a whole year with a plant. Obviously you wouldn't be fasting, and anything really longer than 3 days, you're not really going to be fasting, but you are perhaps kind of eating more plain food, so you know, detoxing from your stimulants, because, you know, we want to kind of be able to tune in and allow our body to go into a healing process. And if you're kind of still kind of like on coffee and alcohol, etc., then you're kind of still in that heightened state, and you need to be in a much more receptive yin state. So detoxing before you start a plant diet is really useful. So you choose the amount of time that you've got. So if you're a busy person, obviously, you know, you're not going to have as much time, but I generally advise people to do a lunar cycle, because that's so, and to start on, say, something like a new moon, so that you kind of like how we start anything in any shamanic process is really key. The energies you put in as the seed at the start of anything will seed the entire process. So really start off your plant diet really well. Choose the day, make sure you've got a clear diary, etc., so that you've got time to spend with the plants. And choose also how you're going to consume the plant. So again, a little bit of research is needed, but if in doubt, you can always work with essences. You know, the essences are vibrational remedies. So it's the bioresonance of plants captured in water. And as we know, everything is frequency. So as as the spirit works through frequency, it can work through a plant essence. And so, but I'd recommend teas, etc. You can take tinctures if you're wanting a physical healing kind of experience as well. But generally, I'm finding that people only really need kind of water-based medicines nowadays. You know, those really hard kind of medicine. We need that nurturing and that really kind of like deep holding, that deep softness. So I'm finding that people are having just as powerful healings, but through you working with decoctions and hydrosols and essences. So once you've chosen the way you're going to consume the plant, is then to obviously kind of like have a live one somewhere, so that you can actually sit with it, be with it, experience its frequency. Because the key to plant diets and understanding plant spirits is frequency. What you're trying to establish is, how does that plant, during the course of your time with that plant, how does that plant feel for me? How does it make me feel? How does it, what kind of, and I'm talking on a sensation level. So perhaps there's a particular feeling in your body, perhaps there's a particular resonance in one of your chakras, perhaps there's a feeling in your energy field that's just kind of changed. And so, and it might take a while to establish that, but that's the key that you're looking for. So for example, mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, just makes this kind of like wavy kind of sensation over my chest. You know, oak, clearly oak's just, you know, down. Foxglove just has this kind of sensation that runs up either side of my body, you know, and so what this is like a handle, and it'll be unique for everybody because we've all got unique energy fields, and so you combine that with the spirit of a plant and you create something new for you. So that's what you're looking for, your unique connection with that plant. Because what this does is this allows you to connect to the plant spirit, because that frequency is what the plant spirit is, and it's always a bandwidth of frequencies. It's not just one particular frequency, but when you start out, you'll kind of like perceive it as just kind of like one particular frequency. Because it is much safer to work in the spirit world as healers, as meditators, as truth seekers. It's much easier and much safer to work in the spirit world if you know who you're connecting to, okay? So a lot of people work with ascended masters and angels, etc., which is okay. But for me personally, being a triple Virgo, I need to know exactly who is it, and I need to know their frequency intimately. And I don't really have any kind of comparison between I don't know what an ascended master feels like. I don't know what an angel really feels like the frequencies. But with plants, you can go and sit with your plant. You can align your energy field with the energy field of the plant or tree, so you know exactly how that plant spirit feels. So when you're calling in a plant spirit, when you're calling in that spirit for help in a particular way, like for example, when I'm working with my clients, I know exactly who's coming in. Because we're living in toxic times. You know, the astral space, and this is the space where all of our healing takes place, where we kind of like resolve our karmic issues, and we do a lot of our healing is on that emotional level. Those astral spaces are really, really quite toxic, you know. So to understand, what I teach as well to my students is understanding the astral space, like what is it? Because if we don't understand what we're dealing with in that kind of state of consciousness and how it functions and what's there, then we can kind of get a bit misled. So I really recommend having some form of kind of cosmology within which to work as well. So as I mentioned, I work within a Celtic cosmology, but I have other influence as well, like Steiner, etc., and indigenous kind of understandings. So, but having a cosmology is really key, because the astral and understanding that state of consciousness, because we're all becoming psychic, okay? It's just a natural process in this awakening. And when you work with plants and trees, it's just a really natural byproduct, you know, because you're cleansing every plant diet you do, you're cleansing the energy field of something. And so and the more you clean yourself, the more your kind of like your natural kind of psychic abilities just come online. It's just a natural way of being. We just get back to our originality. So knowing the astral space, knowing how it operates, knowing how thought forms work, knowing having some kind of like understanding of how the mind works in that space. So I know there's a lady talking about lucid dreaming this weekend, which would be a really good talk to go to see, because the lucid dreaming state helps us to understand the nature of reality, and it helps us to understand the astral space. And living within paradox, because when you have a lucid dream and you're awake, you're consciously aware in the dream that you're dreaming. You know, many of us have had these dreams, and some of us are trained in that. So that and there's a whole kind of spectrum of lucidity within that space. When you have a lucid dream, you're the dreamer, and you're the dream at the same time. So it's kind of like, and it feels much more real than the waking state, which is a bit of a headbender. But But it really does. When you come, it's like hyper 3D, you know, and everything's thought responsive. So you can really experiment in that space, but also understand the astral space, because once you bring emotion into that, strong emotion into the lucid state, you're awake, because it instantly changes the dream. So knowing the astral space is really important to our awakening, to our death process, actually. You know, plant spirit healing is a path of awakening, and for me, the ultimate kind of shamanic initiation is our death. You know, so all of this is our preparation for our transition into where we're wanting to go. And so I know the Egyptians had all the initiations into crossing the abyss, you know, crossing the river Styx. There's so many kind of like, you know, there's so many kind of teachings around the death process, like what we're going to have to deal with, basically what we're going to have to do, and that's crossing that abyss is the lower astral plane. So in Steiner cosmology, he calls it the 8th sphere. It's the lower astral. So what's in there? Well, basically we've created it. We've created it since we were able to think and have emotions, and so it's been there a long time. So it's got all the parts of ourselves that we, in the lower astral, all the parts of ourselves that we've discarded over lifetimes, that other people have discarded. But it's a sentient place because it's made by us. So it has entities within it, which are both, we have this debate a lot, like, are entities that you encounter in an altered state, are they just an aspect of you, or do they have inherent existence within themselves? Well, they're both. You know, if we are moving towards non-duality, if we're moving towards non-polarized way of thinking into that kind of that unconditional state, into that superconsciousness state, then, you know, we have to understand that we're moving from duality, from it being this or that, we're moving it for it to be both. So when you come across an entity in the astral space, it's you. It's both you and it's not you. That's why you can get psychically attacked. That's why you can share entities with your loved ones. You know, we all shared our demons with our families, and, you know, we're really kind of kind like that. And they can, certain ones can kind of, you know, you can kind of pick them up from other people. So this is a thing. So they're independent, yet they're made by us. So they're made from our kind of our lower vibration emotions. And so what the plant spirits do is that they help to show us this, so that when we die, they bring to us all the stuff that we would have to deal with in that non-physical state in our transition at death. They bring it to us so that we can deal with it now, you know, so that we can do the inner healing, we can heal those demons, we can bring healing to our ancestors, we can and to future generations, and we can be healthier and happier people and able to evolve in our natural spiritual way, you know, without these hindrances attached into our energy fields. So this is what the plant spirits do. But the beauty about the plant spirits is that they hold us in this space, you know, so we're not doing it all on our own. They become our allies. So when you spend time with them in a plant diet, maybe repeated plant diets, and you get to know them on a deep level. And I don't mean just kind of like, oh, I take St. John's wort for to feel happier, it's my ally. I don't mean that. I mean that you consciously know what that plant spirit looks like for you. You've met it. You've embodied it, you know its frequency, it is your ally, it's your friend. So, and we know that, you know, if you look at all the kind of like the different attributes in magical kind of plant books, that many plants are protective, and it's usually the transformational plants that are protective. And so you can be going through, because when we go through trauma, or when we're kind of like healing our trauma, so we're going back into it, we can be in quite a vulnerable place. And so the plant spirits hold us in that place, okay? So that they protect us. They allow things in that we need to learn, of course, otherwise what's the point? And that we need to see. but then they help us to kind of move through it. So we've got an ally in our healing work, thank God. You know, because sometimes when you're deep in it, you know, you feel totally isolated. But if you've got a spirit, you've got plant spirits on your side, you know, you're kind of you're halfway there already. So the more you do these plant diets, the more you spend time with the plants and get to know them, the potentiality of where can we go with this then? Okay, we can, yes, there's the personal awakening process, but we know that when we go through this awakening process, then we feel we need to be in service to others. You know, it's just kind of like a natural kind of like process, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, yeah, I'm kind of, this is amazing, but I want to be able to help others now. You know, it's just kind of part of the awakening, I think. And so with plant spirit healing, the more you get to know the plant spirit and what they do specifically, then the better you are as a healer. So, for example, in my work, like I said, I cleanse and people's energy fields. I bring the integrity back to people's energy fields. And so I look for attachments, splits in the energy field, holes, you know, kind of like lost soul parts, lost parts of the energy field. And so I kind of re-establish like a health within the energy field. But to do that, obviously over 12 years of dieting with plants, you have to have some kind of psychic abilities, which just kind of like arise, as I said, naturally the more you diet with plants. But then I need a team to be able to do all the work for me. So I don't necessarily do all of that. I don't kind of like go in and kind of do the healing myself. I have a team to do it because they do it way better than I could. They have the plant spirits have a much broader kind of perspective on time, on what needs to be done first, the order of everything that needs to be done, etc., what's good for the client, etc. And so I know, so I've got such a strong relationship with, say, Foxglove, the spirit of Foxglove, that Foxglove will come in and remove certain forms of toxic psychic debris, close portals, open portals if I need to do soul retrieval. And so I know specifically what each plant spirit does for everything that I might find in somebody's energy field. So I've got a demon hunter, I've got somebody who heals the splits and tears in the energy field. I've got other spirit allies as well, but I primarily work with the plants and trees for that. So that's the potentiality of where plant spirit healing can go. And so I've kind of blasted you with a lot of information, I've just realised. So does anybody have any questions around this? If you're thinking about doing a plant diet yourself, or perhaps what plants...
What's the best way to start off? It sounds really interesting. I really like the idea of finding out what plants might be good for me. How do I start?
Okay, so the question was, how would we start off on this process so that we can, because yeah, the plant queendom, as I call it, is huge, it's vast, and it can be quite overwhelming, can't it? So yeah, where do we start? Well, I would start either with a plant that has just caught your attention, or a tree that you really love, you know, or I always do recommend people starting with mugwort, actually, to be honest, with Artemisia vulgaris, because it's such a visceral plant spirit that has worked with humans, the witches, for so long that she knows us really well. Really protective, can basically do most things, and brings us alignment. So I worked with mugwort for many years to bring alignment into my life, to help me to kind of align back to my natural self, because I was kind of, I certainly wouldn't have been able to stand up here and give a talk, you know, 10 years ago. And what mugwort did was allow me to, she started helping me to do conscious writing so that I could start to express myself. So even the big conference in London I organised, Plant Consciousness, I wouldn't host it. You know, I'd pay somebody else to be on stage with the microphone. But mugwort got me over that, and she helped me to move through that process by dieting with her, spending so much time with her. So mugwort would be a great place to start to kind of help us to kind of bring some alignment back into our lives. So, but you know, word of warning about mugwort, you know, she is a witch. So, you know, we have to be super honourable to her and respect her. You know, and things can kind of feel like everything's been blown, you know, up in the air, and you don't know kind of like what's going on. But then she brings everything down into alignment. So it can be quite a process, but she's very visceral. So that's why I kind of like, she's happy to teach. So great plant to start with. Okay, so with mugwort, so what forms of mugwort can we take? So how to use it? So I use it in different ways. So if I was doing a plant diet, I'd take the essence every day for sure, but I'd also take mugwort tea. So before bed, because mugwort is our lucid dreaming, it's our dreaming plant. There are other dreaming plants, but mugwort's pretty good. She helps us to actually lucid dream. So I'd take a mug before bed, you know, and kind of like put an intention into that water, because as we know, water holds prayers, it holds intentions. And so have an intention of, perhaps you want to incubate a dream. You don't necessarily want to have a lucid dream, but you want the answer to a question. You want to solve a problem in your life. And so you can just put that question into the tea, drink the tea and go to sleep. See what happens. You can put some under your pillow. She's great like that. And how else? You can smoke mugwort. So for any meditators here, try smoking mugwort. It's really smooth, and you have really beautiful meditations. I love meditating with mugwort. So yeah. Yeah, okay. So the question was that in this process, you know, this kind of times that we're in, what's the plant's perspectives on how much do we need to help nature? Well, I don't know if you're referring to climate change, but I'm not really a believer in climate change, and I've never heard anything like that from the plant spirits either. However, I just don't see it anywhere. But in terms of biodiversity, yes. You know, we've got a really kind of a lack of biodiversity, a lack of medicine plants in our environment. But I think the more we do our inner work, and this kind of echoes what you know, the kind of the meme that Eli said about heal yourself, heal the world. The more you kind of heal yourself, the more you actually naturally want to take care of nature. So the more inner work we do, the more we end up kind of like helping in community projects, helping rewild the landscape with the plants that are missing. You know, I do gorilla planting. You know, so yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes, as I say, I'm not 100% sure what my question was.
Okay.
So I suppose the answer is thank you.
Okay.
Emma, just sort of any
I think the kind of like the so Kay's question was is have the plants communicated anything to me that in terms of how they want to be kind of communicated with or treated? They just want to be, you know, back in contact with us. They want us to remember that we're not separate from them. And so having the, you know, you read about in lots of indigenous cultures how they still have, you know, this deep connection to the spirit of the trees and the forests, etc. And so it's literally that, just remembering our place, you know, because we've just forgotten, that's all. It's not that we're disconnected, we're not, we never were. We just forgot how deeply connected we actually are. And so these plant spirits come in lots of different forms to teach us this. So depending on what you need, the plant spirit will come in to help you kind of remember that process, remember that you are a deep and important part of nature and that you're not forgotten. You know, we feel so disconnected sometimes, you know, from anything greater than ourselves that we feel we have this deep loneliness. I know Malodoma Some, who is a wonderful shaman, before he died, he said it's that in the West you're suffering from isolation because you don't have community. And so because you don't have community, then you're not seen. Your purpose and who you are as a unique individual is not seen. And so that's the form of isolation I'm talking about. Because in his, and so in his community, in the Dagara people of Burkina Faso, they would, before a child was even born, they would actually know exactly, they'd have ceremony and they'd find out why is that child being born now into this tribe. Like, what are they bringing with them? And it'll be something that they need. So the child's purpose in life is known before it's even born. So as soon as it's born, all the community just nourish that aspect of that child. I mean, what a beautiful way. And they have these initiations through nature as well. So they're all kind of initiated. And plant spirits, these plant diets that I'm talking about are initiations. Because if you set your container, you know, so you do a lunar cycle, you start off in a beautiful way, you go through your process, you do kind of like shamanic journeys, meditations, etc. with the plant, you dream with the plant, you dance with the plant, you know, if you're artistic, you draw the plant, you can channel the plant and just do conscious writing with the plant, that's really fun. You know, you can do so many things. And the key is intention. You know, to have intention with plants is key to working with them. So if you feel you've got this disconnection, you're not quite sure what you're kind of like, you feel you need a deeper connection to nature, then make that your intention when you work with the plants. Make that your kind of like perspective for that plant diet, and you always get what you ask for with the plants. That's the beauty. You might not get it in the way that you want or expect, but you get it in the end. You know, and you get when you complete a process, you know, when we're working shamanically, this is working shamanically, yeah, we're working in the spirit realm, so we have to honor that space. So make sure you finish your plant diets. Don't just let it dwindle away or nothing's happening. It's working on a level that's just not conscious within you yet, and then you might get all your downloads or your healings, etc. at the end of the process. You've set a container, you set a time frame. So the plant spirits know you've set that amount of time for them, so they know how they're going to do their work. Sometimes I'll do a plant diet and I'll get all my downloads in the first day, and then it's just like integration time for the rest of the plant diet. But it doesn't always work like that. It works in lots of, it could just be kind of like a drip feed thing. Plants know what you need and when you need it. So there's a surrendering process to this as well, and a deepening into. And it takes time, you know. You have to be gentle with ourselves. We're not used to kind of surrendering into kind of our vulnerability. So yeah, but that kind of disconnection can definitely be kind of like healed and yeah, through working with them. Yeah. Okay, we've got lots of hands. Okay, I'm gonna. That lady there had her hand up first, so I'm just gonna. Absolutely, yeah. You put essential oil. So the lady was asking geranium, to work with geranium and the essential oil of it. So you put it in on your acupuncture points. Absolutely, even essences. So you might be able to find an essence of geranium and take it as an essence, and you can put that on your acupuncture points if you don't want to take the bit of alcohol in it. So absolutely, yeah, and. Yeah, I think that answered that. Who is nettle? Maybe that's for you to find out. So I find nettle quite, you know, the plant spirits do reflect their physical attributes as well, you know. So I do find nettle a little bit more challenging to connect to as a spirit because it's an adaptogen, so it's a real shapeshifter. But what I find is it's got a very strong, it's a Mars planet, it's a Mars-associated plant, so it's very fiery, obviously. And I find it's just like I find it's quite military in it's a very masculine energy for me, not for everybody, but I find it quite, it has a very disciplinarian aspect to it. But also I find it very balancing. So nettle's one of those plants that, you know, if you've got too much fire in your system, you know, and you take nettle, it'll calm it down. If you've got too little, it'll bring it back up. So it's a balancer of your fire, your subtle fire element. And so it's really good for meditating. So I find it's a brilliant meditation plant. And actually, I think if anybody's knows anything about Buddhism, the yogi Milarepa spent 10 years meditating in a cave in the Himalayas, and he's always depicted in Buddhist temples as green because his diet was only nettles. He only ate nettles for 10 years. So if you're meditating and only eating nettles for 10 years, there's no doubt he met the spirit of the nettle, for sure. So he became the nettle. Nitrogen. So yeah, nettles are a natural fertilizer for you, especially your roses love that. Yeah. Yeah. So Mother Earth composts, is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. So the lady was just explaining that once we've drunk that intention in the water, absolutely, and so we can use that process as well in our healing process as well. So if we we're dealing with something, or we've we've been into a city and we're feeling like, jangled, or a bit energetically a bit grubby, then, just go into your garden, give it to the earth, Mother Earth composts. So you can release into the earth. Women, we're blessed to have menstrual cycles every month, so we get a cleanse every month anyway. But you give that menstrual blood back to the earth or to the trees, etc., and you can release a lot to really help with your your process. So, yeah. Another question at the back there. Yeah. So the gentleman was asking whether. What about the plants and the vegetables and the plants in our garden that we plant, maybe the cultivars, and also what about if we've got inorganic seeds? So, I only really work with wild plants. Apart from, there are certain cultivars that are pretty good, but, not that often. But yes, it does change the quality. It changes the vibrancy of the spirit. It changes the accessibility of the spirit. And if we have distorted, it's like when people grow cannabis and then they force the plant to flower, to get it to produce the bud quicker. What it does to the spirit is it stretches the spirit, so you can't communicate with it as much. And so you end up with a plant that strings you out, rather than actually creates that beautiful connection to your highest self, which is what cannabis does, and to our creative self. So how we treat the seeds, how we treat the plants to change them, genetically modify them into better cultivars, has a huge effect on the spirit of them. That's why I only work with the wild plants, because you're going to get the true nature of their spirit come through. You're going to be rather than this distorted version. So great question. Thank you. Young lady there. Okay, so the young lady was asking, if we use dried plants, does it change the spirit of the plant? No. No, you can work with dried plants as well as live plants, absolutely. So no, the spirit is still present, but the key to that, when you're harvesting plants, the key is to connect to the spirit before, to make sure you've got spirit of the plant in the dried plant, in the plant that you're harvesting, is to have a connection to it. So have a little bit of you don't have to go into a long diatribe, but you can just maybe introduce yourself and just say what you're picking. I'm picking this chamomile tea because I need to sleep well tonight. I'm just asking the spirit to be present in the chamomile, and when you do that, then you've got a much more vibrant piece of chamomile. This is a tradition, this is an indigenous way of harvesting plants and bringing more sacredness and recognizing the sacredness of plants. And it's well known that if you just mindlessly harvest stuff, you're going to get some, you're going to get qualities, you're going to get healing from it, but you harvest it with consciousness, you harvest it consciously, and with that respect of the spirit of the plant, and you're going to get a whole different chamomile. So the question is, how do plants feel if we're just vegans? Well, they don't have the same sense of self that we do. So, we're very attached to our singular body. whereas plants, in my mind, are more akin to the bodhisattvas in the Buddhist world, where they are able to emanate aspects of themselves in many, many, many places all around the world because they don't have that sense of self. Obviously, like how much you use, and again, respect comes into it. So when you're harvesting, you would only take, say, the maximum a third of a plant. So they want you to have that level of respect in terms of usage. But they are more than happy for us to work with them and to take them as medicines and food. Absolutely. Yeah, it's part of that system.
How about trimming the tree? How does the tree feel about being
Trimming a tree, yes. Okay, so as long as you weeding, as long as you kind of have that kind of conscious communication with your tree and, say, I need to cut you back, and just explain, it creates much less trauma to the tree, than just kind of hacking bits off it. If you actually explain to it, and then it's got time, you can even do it in advance, so it's got time to kind of reassemble its kind of chemicals, etc., and itself to expect that. And so it can kind of withdraw its spirit from those particular branches that you're going to cut. So you could do it that way, tell them a day in advance.
Can I just share a story? I feel a bit compelled to
Do you want
share
to-
this. I just feel a bit compelled to share this story, and it's really strange what this gentleman was just asking about the tree, because the story I just wanted to quickly share was that in my house I always felt that there was someone standing by my bed staring at me at night time when I got into bed. And this went on for years and years and years. And then one day I went to a psychic fair, and this lady said to me, "You feel like there's somebody standing by your bed every night watching you." I said, "How on earth?" I've never told anybody that because I thought they'd think I was crazy. And she told me that it was the tree spirit from a tree that I hacked down because I bought a house with my husband many years before, and to put an extension in there was a tree in the way, so we hacked it down with no thought or regard. It was just in the way, and that tree spirit, she said, was just watching me every night. And she said, and I just couldn't believe it because I thought, this must be true, because I've never told a soul that I always feel there's someone and I could point to the bit by my bed where this thing was staring at me. But I just thought, was this a man or a ghost or whatever? And she said to me, when you're in bed tonight, talk to it. Tell it you're sorry. Talk to it about, just how you, just have that conversation and ask it to please just move on. And I did, and it never happened again.
Oh.
But I had quite a long conversation with it.
Wow.
I was in bed for like half an hour talking.
How did you have a conversation with it?
Just in my head,
ideas
yes.
in your head.
Just in my
through
head.
intention, you can
through
just
intention,
connect.
sort of
Yeah.
telepathically.
Yeah.
How sorry I was
Right.
that I disregarded.
Okay.
It so much and to please-
Do you know what
I
kind of
wish-
tree it was?
No, I don't. No,
Okay,
I
that would have been
don't.
interesting to know,
Yeah.
because there are certain trees like elder and hawthorn we just don't cut down, without some kind of repercussions. Yeah. So yeah, wow,
Accept-
fascinating.
accept
Thank
my
you.
apology, and I
Yeah,
feel like by the end of the
exactly.
conversation it
It
wanted
accepted
that,
the
yeah.
apology. Yeah, that's
Now I'm
really
an absolute tree hugger. I love
That's
trees.
really beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Yeah, so I don't think we've got much time for, I've got 3 minutes, thank you. So as you can see, the tree spirits, the plant spirits are kind of, can be very visceral like that. And like I said earlier, how they appear to us can be in lots of different ways. So we've got the plant spirits that are very witchy, like I was talking about, and can appear as witches. And then you've got plant spirits that are more kind of like, just appear as kind of sacred geometry in the air, and kind of just like, the ochre just appears as this big column of energy. So basically my kind of objective was just to kind of help you to understand that the more that we do this work, this inner work, and we've got support from nature, the more we do this, the more discerning we are, because when we've got toxicities in our energy field, that creates false thoughts, that creates bad connections. So we need to know who we're connecting to. We need to have deeper discernment and we need to know ourselves. So the plant spirits help us to know ourselves at a really deep level, so that then we can operate in a much more grounded, a much more efficient, and a much more clear way. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being here. So thank you.